Good morning, Internet! Today we are enjoying breakfast while we discuss the BFG by Roald Dahl. Now, we only read up to the plan, but there's a lot of stuff that happens before that. Where I left you off last video was Sophie was sitting in the windowsill of the Queen, and the Queen was dreaming her horrible dream. And let's just say that she woke up when the maid brought her breakfast. And the maid is asking her how her dreams were. And the Queen says they were horrible. I dreamed about little children being eaten by giants. And then the maid sees Sophie in the window, and she drops the Queen's breakfast. The Queen is obviously a little shocked to see Sophie in her windowsill. And she says, "Oh, maybe that wasn't a dream. Maybe that dream was real." And Sophie tells her that yes, that dream was absolutely real. And so the Queen actually invites Sophie to breakfast. And Sophie says, "I have one other person," and calls the giant. And the giant runs over, and the groundskeeper that's fixing up the garden sees the big friendly giant, and, collapses in shock. But the Queen then discusses things with Sophie and the giant, and she says, "My breakfast is ruined. Why don't you come into the palace and we will have another breakfast?" And it goes through a couple pages of the chef trying to calculate how much food the giant will actually eat. And he's cooking eggs and bacon for the giant. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. Isn't the giant a vegetarian? Wouldn't eggs and bacon be very, very much against his eating habits? But the giant comes in, and he's actually tripping over everything because the ceilings are very low for him. And he sits down on this seat that they made out of grandfather clocks and a ping pong table. And he eats his breakfast all in like 2 bites. Now, I would have thought that the giant would have had dietary restrictions, or, he's been living off snozzcumbers his entire life, so meat would have, given him stomach problems, but it didn't. No, the giant says, "This is delicious. I want more." And I'm just thinking, they're giving the giant flesh to eat? This isn't good. And so they make more for the giant, and he eats it. Thankfully, of course. And so the Queen is discussing things with Sophie about how they are going to trap the other giants. And she actually calls up other countries, the leaders of other countries, and asks them if they have any missing children. And it's kind of like, "Yes, I do. How did you know?" The Queen's like, "Oh, no bother." And she confirms it with the giant that his other giant friends ate people in those countries. And then she gets her royal army together to gather up helicopters and jeeps and things like that to, you know, capture said giant. And so all of the people come together, and while they're eating breakfast, the giant asks if they're going to have any fizzy pop. Like, if you remember, fizzy pop was the stuff that made him fart and lift up into the air. And the queen has no idea what he's talking about, but when she hears that the giant wants to make music, she of course says, "Oh, please, let the giant play his beautiful music. Let us all dance to his beautiful music." And Sophie's like, "No, no, 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 no. You do not want that. We will not be doing any fizz poppers in front of the queen." And that kind of negates that. The chapter ends when the army is all, or our section ends when the army is all together, and they are waiting for the giant to take them to giant country. And we will be covering that, which is the end of the book, tomorrow. And I do plan to see the movie sometime over the weekend, so next week I will have a spoiler-free review of the BFG. Well, maybe it won't be spoiler-free. Maybe it will just be a comparison of what the movie was like compared to the book. And I've watched the trailer, I watched it after I finished the book, and I can already tell that there's a lot of different stuff in the trailer than there is in the book. But it's not different enough to consider it a different story entirely. So prepare for me to be really mad. The question that I have for you today is, what is your favorite breakfast food? As you can see, I have just eaten mine in front of you. Sorry if you think that's gross, but I was hungry. And I thought that this would be clever, considering the giant and the queen have, you know, breakfast. The question that I had for you yesterday, you already kind of had the answer to, which was, are you as confused as I am about the giant's motives? And I definitely am. Very confused. Do not forget that the next book in my series called Pages Before Screen is the Preacher comic book series. Go out and grab it and read it before I ruin it for you. Borrow it from a friend, borrow it from a library, buy it at a bookstore. I don't care what you do, as long as it's legal. And, yeah, we will be reading that before I even attempt to go farther than the pilot of the TV show. It'll be interesting to see how I, you know, how I cover 72 issues of a comic book series in a couple of weeks. But we will see how good I am at that. Also, I have to warn you that the Preacher series is far more graphic and violent than any series that I've covered on my channel so far. So if you're thinking I covered the BFG and that was kind of kid-like, and that was kind of adorable. And here I am reading a comic book, so you should give that to your kids. You would be wrong. You would be as wrong as those parents that took their kids to go see Deadpool. Because they thought it was a comic book movie. Yes. This series is full of, yeah, just over-the-topness. So, avoid giving this one to your kids. Well, I have been the purple-haired doofus, reminding you to watch your Pajama Radius. And I will see you all in the next and final chapters of the BFG by Roald Dahl. I'm going to enjoy my pancakes now. Toodles!